Welcome back to College Football Fanatic. Week 5 wrapped up in the books. Just got back from Seattle. I was at the Ohio State UW game. We're going to dive into that. But first, I want to start with what I think was the biggest game of the weekend. Oregon beating Penn State on the road in the whiteout, double overtime. If we dive into this game, just on the surface level, honestly, did we think this game was going to go any differently? I mean, the way this game ended is the most Penn State thing ever, and I feel so bad for Penn State fans. I'm an Ohio State fan. I feel awful for Penn State fans because they deal with the same shit over and over and over. I think the updated stat now with James Franklin is 4-21 in top 10 games. If you're looking at their AP poll ranking in the top 10, 4-21 in top 10 games by the AP poll ranking. That's crazy. I mean, that they're cursed at this point, or they just have a coach that, can't win big games, and that's what it seems like at this point. When is the last time Penn State won a matchup game? Was it? Am I forgetting the game, or was it 2016 the blocked field goal return for a touchdown to beat Ohio State in the whiteout game? So, they've made the playoff, they made the CFP semifinal last year, but they beat SMU and Boise State to get the opportunity to play Notre Dame, and they lose that game. So Penn State, I mean, they fight their way back. It's ugly. Drew Aller doesn't look good. They can't move the ball throughout the air. They fight their way back. You're getting some life out of Drew Aller. He had that nice touchdown throw in the corner of the end zone, and Penn State has life. Double overtime, and just for Drew Aller to throw that pick, he clearly made up his mind pre-snap where he was going to go. Maybe Penn State thought they had a look and they worked on it in practice. And it's like, this is going to be open. I'm going here with the ball. And immediately you could tell once the ball left his hand that they were screwed. And that's the end of the game. And so for Drew Aller he is just making these huge game-sealing bad decisions in matchup games. Notre Dame last year in the CFP, Oregon this year in the whiteout, and it's not good enough. And Drew Aller is a guy that he has all the tools, he has the size that you like, but we're waiting for the development, we're waiting for the next step, and we're just not quite getting that. And so there's a lot of questions that have to be asked about Penn State. It's not all on Drew Aller. I think you like your running back duo, Katron Allen, Nick Singleton, but are they special? Not really. You can't compare them to Ohio State last year with Judkins and Travion Henderson. Questionable skill talent on the outside at receiver. I know they've tried to revamp that room with the transfer portal, but they're missing some things offensively, and they're not the team that a lot of people thought they were going to be going into this year. James Franklin, I watched the press conference. I thought he handled that as well as he could have. I mean, he took a lot of accountability. He said it's on me. He was ready for those questions from the media and just talking about the record in big games. And even if they didn't specifically call out the record, just it's hey, how do you keep showing up? And it's not good enough, but just talking about how they can't win these matchup games, can't win these games. And when James was being directed those questions, the only thing he can do is take ownership and say, I understand the frustration with the fans. It starts with me. It ends with me. It's not good enough. I get that. All those things are the right things to say, but again, as a Penn State fan, it's the same shit over and over. What was the clip I saw on Twitter? I don't even know who it was, but same movie, different script, right? And not that it's funny for me, but I could just imagine myself being miserable if I'm a Penn State fan. So this is the most Penn State, James Franklin, Drew Aller way to end this game, and I just can't imagine how Penn State fans are feeling right now. On the Oregon side of things, there's a lot to like. I mean, Dan Lanning, not that anyone has really been doubting him. I mean, of course, there are some concerns considering how the Rose Bowl ended last year. Honestly, how the Rose Bowl started being down 34-0. But he's winning big games right now. I mean, Oregon has, in just recent years, they've beaten Ohio State at Ohio State. And I know that it's been a few years since that happened, but that was still a big win. They beat Ohio State at home last year. They went on the road, beat Michigan last year. Again, I know that wasn't a great Michigan team, but they still went in, took care of business rather easily. And now they go on the road and beat Penn State in the whiteout. And the whiteout, a crazy environment, awesome environment. Oregon gets a lot of credit for showing up and being ready to play and having Dante Moore, their quarterback, be cool, composed, and just even when he was under pressure, the moment didn't feel too big for him. And Oregon replaced so many pieces on offense from last year's team. Damn near they replaced the entire farm on offense. And Dante Moore in that offense is looking pretty good right now. And to be able to move the football, they had that lead in the fourth, that 2-score lead, couldn't quite close it. Found a way to close it in overtime, double overtime in the whiteout. Not an easy thing to do, and Dan Lanning gets a ton of credit for how he has his program and how he has his team playing right now. One question I have for Penn State fans is I wonder their genuine, honest thoughts on Jim Knowles and how the defense has looked so far through year one. Being an Ohio State fan, I mean, I've heard and seen it with Jim Knowles where when he implements this system, sometimes it can take a year or two to really get going, and then once you're 3 years or so in, it can be really good and really dominant. And not that you're not good for the first year or two, but you're usually not at your best. His defenses are usually not at their best until year 2, and really year 3 of the system is where you see that. I'm not saying Penn State has a bad defense. I just wonder Penn State's fans' just initial thoughts through the first few weeks of the season. Now that you've been tested, right? You played a matchup game. I with so much attention being directed to James Franklin and Drew Aller and the offensive side of the ball, I wonder thoughts and an honest evaluation of Jim Knowles through now week 5 of college football. Let's go into Ohio State beating Washington in Seattle, snapping the 22-game home winning streak that's lasted for a few years. Ohio State fans and Ohio State in general heard about that all season long, and I was at that game. That was a great game to be at. Good atmosphere. I'm not going to say it wasn't loud. It was loud, but there was a lot of Ohio State fans there. And you could see that developing because Ohio State fans, they do travel well. But for this game, I had a feeling that they were going to travel better than, let's say, the Oregon game last year in Autzen. Because first of all, easier to get to Seattle and then get to Husky Stadium than it is to get to Autzen. If you can't fly into Eugene directly, which I think a lot of airports don't, then you have to fly to Portland, drive a couple hours into Eugene. Just more difficult to get to. And this year, just being able to fly, you can fly into SeaTac, take the light rail if you want to, straight from the airport to Husky Stadium, literally. So I had a feeling that there would be more Ohio State fans at this game versus UW when you compare it to them playing at Oregon last year. And that turned out to be very true. It's hard to say what percentage of fans made up Ohio State versus UW. Being at the game, I can't see up in the second level behind me, but there was a lot of red, and Ohio State fans were making some pretty good noise on third downs when Washington had the football. Ohio State is the perfect blend of an NFL caliber defense, obviously coached by Matt Patricia, an NFL DC, and then NFL caliber players all over that side of the roster. They have that combined with, I think, an NFL caliber quarterback who's still young and still growing, but Julian Sayin he's seeing everything, I think, the right way. You can tell he's seeing it. He's processing information. He's very accurate, has that precision accuracy. He does not make very many turnover-worthy throws. Unless I'm missing a throw in the game against Washington, I don't think he really had any turnover-worthy throws. He had one bad throw. I think it was the only possession in the whole game where Ohio State punted. It was in the second quarter. Third down, I think they were close to midfield, and Julian kind of rolled out and threw the ball in the dirt and had a guy open, and that would have been a first down, but that was just a bad ball on his part. And that was the only time Ohio State punted in this game. And I just want to go through the drives here because Ohio State, it was very impressive what they were able to do once they settled in. And, they won the middle eight, as we say. They won the toss, so you score before halftime, get the stop, go into halftime, get the ball back, score again, and then it was off to the races after that. UW, again, it was a good environment. It wasn't crazy loud, but it was generally loud, good environment. And Ohio State, coming off a bye week, loud, hostile environment, first road game of the year, kind of a slow, sloppy start was what I expected, and that's exactly what we got from Ohio State. So, as we know, they did not score until late second quarter, right before halftime. They got the touchdown to Jeremiah Smith, which was a very good play call and a very good executed play. And then, like we said, they win the middle eight, so they go into halftime. They're up 7-3, get the ball back. They put together a 7-minute drive, go down the field, score a touchdown. UW answers with a field goal, but then after that, Ohio State just continues to dominate. They got a field goal on their next offensive possession. Then they scored a touchdown later on in the fourth. And that's basically the game. Washington was just outclassed here. And it's no surprise, number one team in the country coming into town. I was definitely concerned for this game. I mean, if you watch my previews, you would see I was very concerned about the Washington offense. The Washington defense didn't scare me. I'm not saying that they're nobodies on that side of the ball, but the Washington offense with the trio of Damon Williams Jr., Jonah Coleman, Denzel Boston, like if they're going off and they're making plays and having a big game, they could not only keep UW in this game, but give them a chance to win it. And Ohio State's defense just shut that down completely. I mean, Caden Curry stepped up and had, I think, 3 sacks, 5 TFLs. Huge monster game from Caden Curry. And just a quick look at the team stats here. Ohio State outgained UW by over 100 total yards. They outgained UW on first downs, 23-15. Ohio State also had more penalty yards. I know that UW fans were complaining about the roughing the passer call and just were complaining about the officials and the officiating all game during the game, then all after the game as well. Ohio State had more penalty yards. So, take that and do with it what you will. Third down conversions, Ohio State was 6 of 10. UW was 1 for 11. And Ohio State also had a slight edge time of possession. So this was a game of just a better team. Once they got their head in it, once they got settled in and were ready to play, I mean, there was no stopping Ohio State in this game. Let's move into the SEC. There's a few games we should touch on here. Alabama beats Georgia. Another win streak goes down. This was the first home loss in 6 years for Georgia, which is very impressive. And Kalen DeBoer in Alabama, they took a lot of shit when they got, and rightfully so, when they lost to Florida State and the way that they did, and they just were not physical and got pushed around. They weren't violent. It was weird to see that. Give credit where credit is due to Ty Simpson and Kalen DeBoer. We'll get into Ty Simpson in a sec, but Kalen DeBoer getting his team ready to play, fixing the issues, going on the road at Georgia, winning, and just giving them that first home loss they've had in 6 years. Kalen's kind of fighting for his job. I mean, I know that's a stretch to say considering the buyout, but I mean, he feels the pressure. Like, he has to feel immense pressure to be the head coach of this program. So this was a huge win in the Kalen DeBoer era for sure. Let's go into Ty Simpson because I think there's a lot to like here with Ty if you're an Alabama fan. 24-38, 2 touchdowns, also ran for another score. I think what you like about him is that he can make a lot of throws in the field. He's more mobile than he gets credit for. But also, and I'm not going to act like I'm a quarterback guru because I'm not, but when you watch a lot of football, and you guys know this, there are things that you can see and you can pick up on. And sometimes you see it, it looks good. And there's other times when you see something that doesn't look good or mechanically something's off. One name that comes to mind is Drew Aller, always throwing off his back foot, or a lot of the time throwing off his back foot, and he's inaccurate, or the ball is behind or down in the dirt, or it's a pick, whatever. All of this to say Ty Simpson sets his feet when he throws and just looks good doing it. And you can tell that I think it's a point of emphasis to just get set, stable, and then fire that ball. And he's on time and he's accurate. And a guy, again, like the comparison to Drew Aller, who's always leaning or oftentimes throwing off that back foot. Sure, sometimes there's a point where you can call for that and where it's needed to do that. For example, that first touchdown pass to Jeremiah Smith that Ohio State had. UW brought the blitz. Julian Sain is backpedaling and then kind of slings that ball in. But that was kind of the point of that play. You want to suck in those guys in the box and then just open up that slow developing route for Jeremiah Smith. And then Julian Sain, as we know, he can make that throw. He can kind of sling it like that. He's accurate, and a guy like Drew Aller maybe isn't as accurate with that kind of throw. And so Ty Simpson, it doesn't look sexy, it doesn't look as fun, but he sets his feet before he throws, and you get an accurate ball. You don't always see that in college football. And before we take a look at the stats here, Georgia's in kind of a weird spot. I think there's been times in the past where there's a lot to like with Gunnar Stockton. You like how he played against Tennessee. And not that he wasn't bad against Bama, but 13-20, had 1 touchdown. I know that there were some drops. There was at least one other dropped touchdown ball, or at least a deep ball that seemingly was going to be a touchdown and was dropped. Gunnar, I don't think has been the problem. But the SEC is going to beat itself up a little bit, and especially if Bama is able to actually continue to develop and maybe get on a roll here, the SEC might sort of cannibalize itself in a way. The same thing could happen in the Big Ten, but I do think you look at, Ohio State and Oregon and those teams of the world, I think are just one notch above everyone else right now. SEC is a little bit more difficult because I don't really know exactly who the elite team is out of the group of the Alabama, Georgias, LSUs, etc. And I'm not saying that these teams aren't elite. I think a better way to say this is there an SEC team that's going to separate itself or is separating itself? And I don't know if we really have one right now. It's not that it's not going to happen, but at this point in the season, don't know if we're there. I mean, if you're going to tell me it's Ole Miss, Ole Miss, I mean, we'll get to them in a second. They had a big win at home versus LSU. Lane Kiffin's doing a good job there, but there's just, the SEC kind of feels open right now. There isn't, the one to be beat team, and now maybe we'll see that develop, and again, teams are going to lose, and we're going to figure out who's a pretender, who's a contender, that sort of thing. But SEC is kind of the Wild West right now. There's not a lot of confidence on who the best team is in that conference at this time, in my opinion. But to finish out the quick look at the team stats here between Bama and Georgia, Bama had a little bit of an edge, total yards. They outgained them by 40 yards. First downs, Alabama had the advantage. Georgia had more penalty yards. Third down was drastically different. So Alabama was a very impressive 13 of 19 on third down. 19 third downs is a lot, but to convert 13 of them, very impressive. Georgia was quite the opposite. 2 of 8 on third down. That killed them. Both teams are 0 for 1 on fourth down, and the time of possession advantage by about 11 minutes went to Alabama. So Georgia will be fine. Kirby Smart and his team will be fine. I say fine and not good and not great because I don't know if you can have that outlook right now. They probably should have lost that game on the road against Tennessee. Now, they didn't lose, so you can't say probably, but still, I mean, there's still cause for concern even after that game. And then losing this game at home, I mean, they were going to lose at home eventually, but you don't like losing to this Bama team. This Bama team's getting better. They're improving, but, we have an eye out on Georgia right now. Let's see how they continue to develop and get better and improve throughout the year. And then the last team I want to touch upon, let's talk about Ole Miss upsetting LSU. This was kind of a weird game as well. And we're just going to jump straight into the box score here, the team stats, if you will. Big day offensively for Ole Miss. They outgained LSU 484 yards to 256. This was also, teams were moving the ball. Ole Miss was moving the ball without a whole lot of issue, but this was a sloppy game. There were lots of turnovers, penalties, turnover-worthy throws. Ole Miss had 2 turnovers. LSU had the 1. Both quarterbacks threw a pick, and there were some other turnover-worthy throws mixed in there as well. Ole Miss had quite the first down advantage, 28 to 16. Penalties here, this is insane. Ole Miss had 14 penalties for 109 yards. That's crazy to give up over 100 yards in penalties. They can't be doing that. I can't believe that they had 14 penalties for 109 and they still win this game. LSU wasn't squeaky clean either. 7 penalties for 78 yards. A very sloppy game. Lots of stoppage here. And then third down, kind of like Alabama, Georgia, very, very different. Ole Miss was 8 of 16, so not bad, pretty good. 50% on third down, we'll take that. LSU was 2 for 11, which is just a death sentence. They would get to third down and they're cooked. Now, both teams did go for it on fourth down twice. Both teams were 2 of 2, and then the time of possession had a little bit of a slight lean towards Ole Miss.